and healthcare is still at the top of the list. There are reports that President Obama, he's on vacation right now in Massachusetts, that he may be willing to, when he comes back, drop all this discussion and pretense of bipartisanship now that Senator Grassley has essentially said, well, even if we can get a bill, I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty close to it, even if we can get a bill that I agree on and we could pass out of the committee, I would have to vote against it because the majority of the Republicans would be against it. If you could figure out that logic, you too could write a novel like, called Catch-22. Dan Gainor with the Business and Media Institute is with us. He is the Vice President and T. Boone Pickens Free Market Fellow at the Business and Media Institute, businessandmedia.org. The website. Dan, you've got quite a little op-ed here. Hey, welcome to the show, first of all.
It's a pleasure to be back. It's always an exciting way to start off my week.
Good. Same here. I thought this was fascinating. Your take in general on the whole the protest movement and everything else. Your thoughts on the healthcare debate right now.
Well, I think that Obama's at a crux. He's, the classic rock and a hard place position, because if he goes to the left, he's not going to get Republicans, but he's probably going to lose blue dog Democrats. If he doesn't have the public option, he probably loses the progressive votes. And in the final analysis, maybe he doesn't get anything, in which case the Democratic Party suffers big time.
Right.
I think the most likely scenario right now, but it's not the only one, the most likely one is he's probably going to try to get something through so he can say, well, it's incremental, and he can maybe get the progressives be willing to deal with that if he promises to go back at it again. And that way, he doesn't look like he failed in his major initiative. But
that's the Clinton option, is what I refer to that as. And
I think that's probably the most likely if they.
Well, I think last week that's what they thought they were going to do, and then their base started speaking up, and their base is raising hell with them. So we'll see.
The Howard Dean bit. If they try reconciliation, they're going to give the Republicans at least the House, maybe the Senate, and certainly damage the Democratic Party for a long time.
I don't think so. People, that's what the Republicans predicted would happen when Franklin Roosevelt shoved Social Security down their throat. It's what they predicted would happen when Lyndon Johnson pushed Medicare through. And now you've got people saying, don't get your government hands on my Medicare.
Well, the difference between those times and now is that the media no longer controls, what people are talking about, and it's whether it's talk radio on the left or talk radio on the right. The liberal websites.
No, Dan,
websites.
I'm sorry. When go back and Google Father Coughlin. Father Coughlin was a talk show host who had 30 million. He had a third of America listening to him. There were 100 million people in America at that time. And he had a third of America listening to him on a daily basis because there were only 2 radio networks.
But he wasn't interactive. That's the.
But he was raving against Social Security. He was calling it communism. He was saying that this was Joe Stalin coming to America. How could you say that there wasn't any right-wing media out there when he was more popular than Edward R. Murrow? You're
misunderstanding. The reason why Bush ran into this problem and Obama's running into this problem right now is if you get a public not only angry about something, but where they're able to be engaged, and the internet is the ultimate engaging tool. If you get people where they're able to participate in being upset, not just hear something on the radio, but actually take action, email their congressman, call people, do things that the new tools, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, enable that. What those tools have done is they've given the opposition party, whichever opposition party it is, powers to take down the party in power.
Well, what they've done is I agree. They have given groups like the Lewin Group, which is cited by Republicans constantly with their healthcare statistics, but is a wholly owned subsidiary of United Health Insurance, the second largest insurer in America, the one whose CEO right now, Stephen Helmsley, is sitting on $433 million worth of stock options just from his working there for 4 or 5 years, who's making $102,000 an hour, this guy. They've allowed these AstroTurf organizations to create to create fear and panic among people. But let me bring it back to
I'm going to take issue with the word you just used, which is AstroTurf. We went through 8 years where MoveOn.org and Acorn and all sorts of other groups were mobilizing the left base.
MoveOn.org was not funded by big corporations.
But nobody called them AstroTurf.
Because they weren't. They were genuinely funded by actual contributions from actual donors.
How many groups on the left get money from George Soros? I mean, he's one of the most wealthy people in the entire world.
George Soros put up some initial funding for the Center for American Progress and Media Matters. And Media Matters is no longer, to the best of my knowledge, funded by him. That's nothing. Those are not the groups that are organizing these meetings. MoveOn.org genuinely, and by the way, they don't try to hide it. And media, whereas in the case of the guys on your side, they're desperately trying to hide it, and they've been pretending for years that it's not AstroTurf. But I want to get to your op-ed. I think your op-ed is brilliant. You say, when the right protests, it must be wrong. After 8 years of Nazi images and loony left protests, now the media opposes dissent. Amplify on that.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Both sides use the same thing. Whether it's demonizing the other side and everything they do. And we sat through 8 years where repeatedly we were told, every time we got upset about the Bush-Hitler comments, there's 1.1 million Google links if you look for Bush and Hitler. There's something like 1 million for Bush and Nazi. This was a repeated theme from the left, particularly groups, whether it's Code Pink, the more extreme groups. They got a lot of media play. Cindy Sheehan, tons of media play when she went down to Texas to protest Bush. She's going up to protest Obama this week. Do you think she's going to get a lot of play?
I doubt it.
And so what we're getting is the bait and switch approach. We're not supposed to protest. We're conservatives. No, the conservatives are just as angry as liberals were during the 8 years of Bush administration.
Here's the significant difference, Dan. When George Bush was torturing people, he was doing something that the Nazis did. When George Bush was having people dragged out of town hall meetings because they had no blood for oil bumper stickers on their cars, he was doing something that the Nazis did. I'm not big on analogies between Bush and the Nazis. I think it diminishes the horrors of the Holocaust. But the fact of the matter is that when Cindy Sheehan spoke up, she actually had a son who died in a war that was not unlike Hitler's invasion of Poland. That is, it was a ginned-up war against a phony enemy to increase the political power of the leader. And Cindy Sheehan's son actually died. On the other hand, on the right, you've got people who are running around like Sarah Palin talking about death panels that don't exist. So I think that I don't think that there's a moral equivalence here. I don't think there's any kind of equivalence here.
I've actually met one of the Iraqi generals who flat out told me that the weapons of mass destruction were taken to Syria. So I don't know. You can believe.
Dan, I guarantee you, if that general had any evidence at all,
I can believe what I was told in person by a guy who worked for Saddam Hussein as a general. So to me, that trumps the other. As far as making comparisons, you can make comparisons to any war to any other war. The truth of the matter is, we never stopped being at war with Iraq from the first Gulf War.
No, but my point is that you're saying that how dare we, how dare the media cover Cindy Sheehan and not give equal coverage to arguments about death panels? And the fact of the matter is, death panels aren't real, and Cindy Sheehan's dead son is real.
I'm saying, how dare the media not cover Cindy Sheehan now when they covered her then? She's protesting the same war with a different president. But I guarantee you they won't. They won't cover it the same.
Well, that's because this president is committed to winding down this war. I mean, he's inherited a real mess.
And a ramping up of the other war, which is instead
which
of getting the coverage,
I'm opposed to as well, Dan.
Instead of getting the coverage that the war in Iraq, the surge, which historically speaking was effective, instead of getting the coverage that the media gave the surge, which was all negative then, it's getting extremely positive coverage from the major networks, which have all sorts of embedded reporters who are saying, "Oh, look at our guys fighting," and you can tell they're building.
I don't think so. The bloodiest week in Iraq was last week. That was widely reported. I'm not sure I would call that positive coverage.
No, I'm saying that the war in Iraq is not, but the war in Afghanistan right now.
I'm sorry, I meant Afghanistan, actually.
Yeah, the war in Afghanistan where they're embedding reporters and speeding things up, getting lots of good positive media coverage.
Well, I think if the Obama administration is hoping that good media coverage is going to allow them to have a successful war, I think that they're walking right into the trap Lyndon Johnson walked into, and Obama will be the LBJ. I think it'll be a disaster.
Well, he may be the LBJ or the Jimmy Carter, no matter how you look at it.
We'll see. Dan Gainor, businessandmedia.org. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.